Let's take that to my panel tonight. Sky News contributor Joe Hildebrand and host Steve Price. Steve, of course, you've borne the brunt of most of this down in Melbourne. I mean, more than 100 fire bombings you've had at tobacconists. You've got insurance companies now refusing to insure people who live in buildings that have a tobacconist down the bottom of them. And the federal government just won't move on this. It is so stupid.
Yeah, look, they don't understand. I mean, there's a fire bombing of a tobacco shop every night pretty much in Melbourne, and that's been going on, Caleb, I now think probably for 4 or 5 years. I mean, it is bloody dangerous. And I tell you what, there's shopping strips. I mean, you mentioned how many of these tobacco joints are around. Up and down, say, Chapel Street in Windsor and Prahran, every second shop's a tobacconist.
Yep.
And you can just walk in there and obviously, clearly, you can purchase an illegal product. Now, the police have not got the resources to shut those shops down. They don't seem to have the will either, and the state government certainly doesn't have the will, neither does Canberra. It's a dangerous criminal activity that they just refuse to accept is happening. And you're quite right, we could all see this coming. I mean, who's going to go into the IGA or to Woolies and pay $57 for a packet of cigarettes? No one's going to do that if they know they can walk next door and get the same packet, as you said, for $20.
And I feel so sorry, Joe, for the states, because, you know, the states get saddled with having to enforce all of this, but it's not their fault that the federal government is so greedy that they say, well, we want more and more tax. But the reality now is the tax is going backwards because everyone is buying the illegal stuff anyway. Like, you would think even from the bottom line, the budgetary bottom line, they'd start to go, oh, hang on, this isn't working.
Well, as the good minister said, you know, we can't let organised crime dictate revenue measures.
That is a cop-out.
That's right, revenue measures to the government, which I think actually sort of bells the cat on this. This is a huge money spinner for the government. It used to be, I remember when all these taxes and the plain packaging and everything was brought in, back when I think Tanya Plibersek was health minister, and the argument was that that tobacco actually cost the country, cost the taxpayer so much money in medical expenses, hospital stays, you know, people being off from work because they're sick. And I remember noticing a few years ago in one of the budget lockups that the amount of money that the government was now getting from tobacco excise was now outpacing how much smoking actually cost the community. So from then on, it obviously became a cash cow. I think another problem for the government is that at the exact same time as the tobacco taxes were skyrocketing, they were cracking down on vaping as well, which is how a lot of people were, because I think a lot of the reason it's going down is because some people are quitting. But again, the easiest way for pretty much every smoker I know to quit has been to transition to vaping, and they were making that harder, putting up more regulatory hurdles at the same time. So it was a perfect storm.
It's just stupid stuff. Now, of course, I talked a little earlier about...
Caleb,
sorry, go on.
Caleb,
go on, Steve.
What happened to the crackdown on vapes? These things that come into the country that are supposed to be illegal that Mark Butler announced. I don't see any crackdown on vapes.
But this is the thing as well. They missed a trick there because they could have regulated it in the same way they do cigarettes and said, well, we understand that the illegal cigarette market already exists, so of course there's going to be an illegal vape market. But they said, no, we'll ban it. It'll all be fine.
They could have said,
that hasn't worked.
Don't smoke illegal cigarettes. Buy legal, regulated vapes.
Exactly.
And the market was doing that, but the government sort of...
Everything they touch, they bugger up. Now, the other thing I talked about at the top of the show, of course, is that the Liberal Party and how they've got to decide what their philosophies will be going forward. And it's interesting to see the divides. I talked about what Garth Hamilton had to say, and I think it's some of the best analysis I've seen so far. On the other side, this was Senator Jane Hume on Sky News today.
I have a personal opinion on that, of course, and you know that would be that you know the electorate has sent us a very clear message what it is that they want in their government. Abandoning net zero, I don't necessarily think is consistent with that.
I mean, Steve, do we really believe that everyone went out and voted for Labor because they couldn't, you know, bear the idea of net zero not existing? I don't think that had anything to do with it.
No one's marching in the street for net zero. I don't care what any Labor minister says or what Chris Bowen rattles on about. It's simply not, that's not the issue. I mean, the Liberal Party have got to wake up to themselves, and Jane Hume needs to as well. I mean, have a look at the train wreckage around the country. I mean, put to one side for a moment that awful election loss and how devastating that was. Have a look at WA. The Liberal Party basically doesn't exist. They got, You know, they've got 2 or 3 members in the state parliament. Basil Zemplis is trying to fix that up. In South Australia, in Adelaide, the Federal Liberal Party don't have 1 seat in yours and my old hometown, Caleb. Yep. I mean, that is just something that, growing up in South Australia, you could never imagine that would be the case.
Actually,
in Victoria, the state opposition's hopeless.
They pretty much lost every booth in Adelaide, let alone every seat, which is just extraordinary.
I mean, I grew up in the seat of Sturt. That was always a Liberal seat. I mean, Adelaide had a divide, as you know. The eastern suburbs and the inner southern suburbs were always Liberal territory. Port Adelaide and the western suburbs were different. But, I mean, the Victorian state opposition, they spent all of their time throwing more redeeming out of the party and not worrying about trying to win an election. Dan Andrews won 3 elections in a row in Victoria. The Liberals never got within a sniff. So it's not hard to work out what's gone wrong here. The Liberal brand is completely stuffed, and if they don't realise that themselves, how's it ever going to be fixed?
Yeah, and the point, Joe, is that it's not just about dropping net zero or having net zero. It's about the effect of doing so. And if you can say by dropping net zero, we can wind back whatever plans there might be for renewable energy, whatever they can sell, and say, look, this will result in a reduction in your power bills, for instance. That is the point of going down this road, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting article by Garth Hamilton, but to be honest, I think even talking about net zero is a problem for the Liberal Party. I think the reason why this election was such an emphatic win for Labor is because Labor moved to and held the centre, and I know that's something that a lot of people on the right refuse to believe, but that is what...
But was the centre really worried about net zero at this election?
No, they don't care either way. This is the whole point. So the mistake that both the left and the right make on this issue, just as they make on Indigenous issues, is thinking that everybody else cares about them as much as they do. One side cares about them in a very, very positive way. The other side cares about them in a very negative way, and you can swap them around or whatever. The point is the vast majority in the people in the middle do not give a rat's. And that is why when Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party started arguing about welcomes to country in the last week of that campaign, I was just going, for the love of God, it's already dead. What are you doing?
But that was my point.
We're talking about, most people aren't marching in the street for welcomes to country or marching in the streets against welcomes to country. They just want a party that is going to fix their kitchen table problems. And whichever party has the most credibility, whichever party they believe can do that, they will vote for. They don't care what colour it is. And Peter Dutton lacked credibility, and the coalition lacked credibility in terms of their policy plans and the detail around it. And at the same time, they were talking about other stuff, cultural war issues, that no one cared about.
And that was my point, is people don't really care about left and right, but they care about good policy that makes them feel like they're better off. And if you can sell the message that by dropping net zero you can make power bills lower, that's where you go with it. But we'll see what they do. And of course, they've still got to worry about whether the Nats want to be in coalition with them either. And that's one of the things that they will be asking about. Now, Joe, you had a piece out in the telly today talking about exactly how much, I know, you can't believe I'm giving you a G up here, Joe, but talking about exactly how much Labor hates the Greens, and you can understand from many perspectives why, but your source said when a matter before the Senate is poised almost evenly, the Greens are powerful for 10 minutes. They can't create anything, but they sure can kill things. Yes. And this will be the question. Now that they have the absolute balance of power in the Senate, what are they going to do with it, and how does Labor work with them?
Well, it's not necessarily that the Greens have increased their power. Labor has actually picked up Senate seats. So the fear that I think people on the right has is that Labor just needs the Greens and nobody else. So there's still a whole bunch of crossbenchers and indeed the coalition. If they do not want the Greens to be dictating policy terms to Labor, and I can promise you Labor will tell them to, go jump more times than not, then the coalition can very simply do what it refused to do in the last parliament and negotiate with Labor on those same bills to make sure that they don't get, leftified or greenified or redified or trottified by the Greens, because the Greens they're terrible negotiators anyway. They are obstructionists. They did terrible damage by blocking the housing policy, and they are also a party that depends upon progress not being made. And this is why Labor, real smart Labor people absolutely despise them. People at the top of the party despise them. The PM despises them, because what they actually want is a permanent state where people can be upset, angry about stuff, so they go out and protest and they lodge their vote with a protest party. Any progress that actually gets made hurts the Greens. So that's why they're so utterly disingenuous, and why I can promise you that Labor genuinely hates them.
Now, Steve, we're getting the budget down your way in Victoria tomorrow, and the new Treasurer, Jacqueline Symes, of course, who famously got her staff to tell Treasury staff not to use economic terms because she couldn't understand them. So we know that it's all going to go really well. But you won't believe what they're trotting out now to say, look, you've got to stick with us. Take a look at this.
From the 1st of January next year, if kids under the age of 18, kids will be able to travel free anywhere across Victoria, thanks to the responsible decision making we have done as part of setting tomorrow's state budget.
So we find out today that the debt won't have a 2 in front of it. So it'll be under 200 billion, so that's fantastic. But we'll give the kids free public transport and that'll save Victoria, Steve.
Well, someone ought to tell Jacinda Allen and Jacqueline Symes that kids don't pay to ride on public transport anyway. I mean, that's all great to give them free. I catch trams and trains around all the time, and none of these kids pay. They don't tap their myki on. They just get on the tram and get off the other end. They wouldn't give a rat's whether it was free or not because they don't pay now. And on the debt, I mean, 10 years ago, I looked this up for you today, Caleb. 10 years ago, the Victorian government debt in 2014-15 was $22.3 billion. As of 2024-25, this year, or 25-26, it's going to be $168.5 billion in 10 years.
Fantastic.
And just a quick little tip for the Victorians, by the way. If you're going to deliver a budget handout to win the next election, try giving it to people who are old enough to vote.
I know, but it is a very good point.
Well, hang on.
Go on.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The parents are the ones that pay for this card that the kids currently have to pay for to catch the tram and the train to school. So it's about $700 per family, but they don't pay anyway.
I mean, you know, isn't that what you do with your pocket money? I was expected to do that with my pocket money if I wanted to get around on public transport. But I told this story last night on air that I was on a train from Warragul to Melbourne a few months ago, and the inspector bloke... well, I've got a mate who lives in Warragul, and the inspector bloke comes down on the train and he says to these kids, you know, stop being so rowdy. And they said to him, look, we don't have myki cards. And he said, I know that, but please don't vape on my train. So that's where we seem to be.
Don't worry about the tickets, if you could just stop setting fire.
That's it, exactly. That's where we seem to be at. Steve, Joe, thank you so much for your time.